SCP-2771. Imagine being armed, trained, and stationed at a secret Foundation facility, only to get abducted by a bunch of guys dressed like budget soldiers from a Halloween prop store. You see, SCP-2771 is a group of humanoids appearing at secret Foundation facilities, trying to abduct armed security personnel. They look human enough right up until you notice the outfits. They're wearing poorly cut cloth versions of black tactical gear and green uniforms, as if they tried really hard to appear professional, just to end up looking like this idiot. They communicate exclusively by pointing with two fingers, plus nonverbal gestures that mostly read as annoyance, frustration, and disbelief. Now, normally, the Foundation would capture them, interrogate them, or shoot first, and write a very dry report later. But with them, any resistance, capture, or incapacitation just causes more of them to appear, in larger numbers, at more Foundation facilities. So the official containment procedure is, frankly, embarrassing. If they show up anywhere they shouldn't, security personnel point insistently at Area 2771 on a map until the entities leave. If, for some reason, you're still dumb enough to get abducted, they alter your clothes with chalk paint and sackcloth, then send you to a desert toll booth attached to a transportation system resembling an undulating human tongue. There, you're forced to work an 8 to 12-hour toll booth shift. Travelers pull up one by one, and each one expects a specific response. If they hand you an ID, you eat part of it, wrap the rest in foil, and give it back. If they give you money, you slide it away and point them forward. If they show you an object with their own face on it, you stare at it and point again. So yeah, the job is ridiculous, but apparently necessary. Do it right, and you get sent home. Do it wrong, and the humanoids just drag you back for another shift. Which means containment is less about stopping these losers and more about staffing the toll booth properly. SCP-3914. You know how people joke that Amazon has become a little too powerful? Well, the Foundation apparently agreed. SCP-3914 is Amazon's board of directors, except each member has a different necromantic ability because regular corporate greed clearly was not doing enough. One can resurrect the recently dead while keeping their memories. Another can raise bodies that have been decomposing for centuries and turn them into obedient workers. One binds ghosts to objects, while another can kill someone just by touching them. And what do they use all this for? Increasing shareholder value. I'm deadass. The Foundation has found dozens of secret Amazon warehouses staffed entirely by reanimated corpses. So yes, the working conditions somehow got worse. And that's only the warehouse staff. The Foundation also believes politicians, police officers, rival executives, and Amazon employees have been killed, brought back, and quietly put to work for the company. Even Jeff Bezos is listed as a reanimated corpse being used as the public face of Amazon. Because apparently, death is not a valid reason to miss a board meeting. Then, the Foundation sent in an undercover agent. He later returned to his site, only for scanners to reveal that he had actually died 3 months earlier after meeting 2 board members. Amazon had resurrected him, planted a tracking device on him, and sent him back as a spy. He then attacked Foundation personnel before being put down. So, the Foundation stopped infiltrating Amazon. Now, they mostly watch as the company buys their suppliers, steals bodies from cemeteries near Foundation sites, and expands its empire one dead employee at a time. So yeah, kudos to Amazon for thinking outside the box, or should I say, casket? SCP-396. SCP-396 is, unfortunately, just a chair. A completely normal-looking steel chair with a red plastic seat. And I can already hear you. Judd, why on earth is a chair in this lineup? Fair question. Take a seat and I'll tell you. Every 4 to 12 days, this chair randomly swaps places with another chair somewhere else in the world. And if someone happens to be sitting in either chair, they swap too. Sounds harmless, right? That is, until your routine dental checkup suddenly becomes a Foundation containment breach. I'm serious. SCP-396 has turned up everywhere. Testing centers, archaeological dig sites, movie sets, and even the Vatican, after Pope Benedict XVI suddenly disappeared from his throne and reappeared inside a Foundation facility. Luckily for him, the Foundation simply convinced him it had been a religious experience and politely sent him home. Naturally, they spent years trying to figure out why this stupid chair kept doing it. One site blamed magic. Another blamed time travel. One team literally summoned a deity whose official title was Highest of High Chairs to ask if he knew anything. Apparently, he didn't. Then, things somehow got even dumber. Researchers accidentally interviewed a completely normal chair because someone had already moved SCP-396 without telling them. Meanwhile, the real anomaly teleported the interviewer onto an Italian movie set. That's when one researcher proposed something terrifying. The chair wasn't escaping containment. It was judging them. Every Foundation site gets one chance to explain the anomaly. And whenever a theory gets just believable enough, SCP-396 quietly leaves for the next facility to watch another team waste months arguing with furniture. So yeah, it's less about containing the chair and more about the chair containing everyone's patience. Anyway, I'm gonna sit this one out. SCP-3199. This thing isn't one creature, it is a species. They are extremely violent, horrid-looking humanoid creatures with a genetic makeup that includes human, chimpanzee, chicken, mussel, adder, and possibly my channel logo. A mature SCP-3199 instance is usually hairless, covered in a thin egg-like secretion, and stands about 2.9 meters tall. It can also weigh around 780 kilograms, which is a lot of animal to have sprinting at you at 25 kilometers per hour. But the real problem is not the creature, it's the eggs. SCP-3199 produces large, tough eggs through its throat and mouth, making the birth both terrifying and inefficient. And what's worse is that those eggs are extremely hard to destroy and resistant to damage, which is devastating news for everyone who thought making an omelet could fix this problem. Anyway, they lay eggs in any unoccupied space: closet, egg, ventilation shaft, egg, empty microwave. Hope you like protein. Oh, and every SCP-3199 instance is born already carrying another egg, meaning when you kill one, it just sprouts another egg, which also hatches, which also lays eggs. You get the idea. Containment involves keeping them submerged in hardened acrylic blocks inside an acid-resistant steel room, with CCTV watching 24/7. There's even a backup perimeter zone just in case one starts twitching. If they breach, the site floods with sedative-laced distilled water. Because, apparently, they mistake liquid for occupied space and stop laying eggs in it. So, yeah, tough egg to crack, this one. SCP-2662. SCP-2662 is a 4-meter-tall, 200-kilogram cognitohazard with roughly 20 tentacle-like limbs growing from its back. In other words, it looks exactly like the kind of ancient Lovecraftian god that should be demanding human sacrifices before breakfast. Instead, it voluntarily lives in Foundation containment, reads the newspaper, plays video games, and gets a $50 monthly gaming allowance. Turns out, the real problem is not SCP-2662, it's the fanbase. Long-term exposure can make people unusually aware of its wants and needs, then increasingly compelled to satisfy them. So, about once every month, an entirely new religious cult appears somewhere in the world, and for some reason, they all decide the exact same thing. We need to break into the Foundation and worship the tentacle guy. I'm serious. One group blasted through the floor while he was showering. Another brought a sacrificial piglet to breakfast and managed to bleed all over his newspaper. One cult somehow broke into his bathroom and started an orgy. SCP-2662 basically spent the entire incident asking them to leave so he could finish washing his hair. You see, despite looking like an ancient god, SCP-2662 is only around 200 years old, like barely legal. He has no interest in settling down and would much rather everyone stop turning his living space into a jizz fest. The Foundation eventually had to create an entire task force just to keep worshippers out of containment. Every time one cult fails, another one shows up with an even better plan, despite having no contact with the previous group. So yes, SCP-2662 is completely containable, but the endless supply of weirdos desperate to crawl through a vent and ruin his breakfast is not. SCP-920. SCP-920 appears as an Asian man of indeterminable age, originally found wearing a green hoodie, white t-shirt, and jeans. On his left calf, he has the words Mr. Lost from Little Misters by Dr. Wondertainment tattooed on him, meaning he belongs to a company that creates anomalous toys that occasionally kill children. Yeah, tragic, whatever. But what's even more tragic is that Mr. Lost is not violent. It's just that he cannot be intentionally taken anywhere. If you try to transport him somewhere, the transporters get lost. If you try to give him directions, he gets lost. If you follow him, both of you get lost. And there is no clear moment where the effect starts. Sometimes it shows up as broken GPS systems, sometimes radar malfunctions, sometimes the weather changes, earthquakes happen, or a random human forgets how to do their job, just like you keep forgetting to subscribe. Just saying. Anyway, he also has a mild psychic pull that makes people want to walk and talk with him, which doesn't sound bad until you remember what happens when you walk with Mr. Lost. You get lost, obviously. Luckily, one genius had the idea to build an entire Foundation site around him, which sounds solid, until the staff realized they could no longer locate the site. So yeah, technically, he is not breaking containment. Containment just keeps losing the address. SCP-1715. SCP-1715 is an anomalous entity that joins small online communities, usually places built around games, TV shows, music, wikis, or fandoms. It uses different usernames every time, claims to be somewhere between 15 and 30 years old, and starts acting like the most normal person on the site. So naturally, people trust it. After a few weeks, the anomaly usually becomes super popular. Sometimes it even gets promoted by the site admins, which means, yes, this thing can become a moderator. And that's when it starts sending private messages. The messages usually begin with friendship, a fake personal story, and then a request for the other person's real information. It's basically phishing, except the prize for oversharing isn't someone emptying your savings account, it's death. Because if you're dumb enough to give it factual personal information, something happens to you within 2 weeks. The victims are injured or killed in violent incidents that look completely normal to police and forensic investigators. Accidents, murders, suicides, all explainable, all seemingly non-anomalous. But then, the dead user's account keeps posting. It writes like them. It remembers their life. It joins conversations like nothing happened. And if anyone points out that the real person is dead, it usually accuses them of trolling. So, containment is now mostly digital damage control, bots, shutdowns, DDoS attacks, and convincing site admins to remove it before it makes more friends. But that's what makes SCP-1715 so difficult to contain. There's no body to lock up, no house to raid, and no account worth banning for long. It just makes a new profile, joins another fandom, and waits for someone who genuinely believes Leonardo DiCaprio is stranded at the airport and urgently needs their bank details. SCP-2165. Imagine doing something so unbelievably bad that the entire universe unanimously agrees to never acknowledge you again. That is SCP-2165. Or at least, I think it is. Because here's the weird part. Nobody actually knows what it is. It could be a person, a creature, an object, or even a concept. The Foundation genuinely has no idea. And according to the file, they don't give a shit anymore. Because whatever it did apparently crossed a line so absurd that reality itself decided it deserved no forgiveness. Not prison, not even death, just complete, utter rejection. At some point, it committed an action so irredeemable that every being, every object, every force, and maybe even the universe itself collectively agreed to erase the event from causality. So now, nobody remembers what happened. Nobody even remembers what the hell it is. In fact, nothing is even allowed to acknowledge its existence anymore. That's why the containment procedures are probably the shortest you'll ever read. Leave it alone. Don't acknowledge it, and keep this document in an extratemporal location, where reality can't accidentally forget it too. That's it. Which explains why the Foundation isn't actually containing it. Instead, they're basically keeping the last surviving sticky note that says, "Trust us, this guy did something." So yeah, now whatever SCP-2165 did, it somehow got canceled by the entire universe. My advice though, just give it a week. A new apology video, maybe a podcast appearance, and you're so back. So those are some of the most uncontainable SCPs. How would you try and contain each of them? Let me know in the comments.